And then Jennifer Rubin, writing on Sunday, it's published on Sunday in the Washington Post. She says, quote, "It gives me no joy to say that my prediction in April that the Supreme Court was set to launch a war on modern America, on the social and legal processes of over decades, was accurate. In a tone more reminiscent of a MAGA rally than a high court, the majority, Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization opinion overturning the right to abortion, drips with disdain for women's concerns about personal autonomy and for the principle of stare decisis." Now, we all know what stare decisis is. That means settled law, something that has been decided, it's been challenged, it's been upheld over and over again. In the case of so-called Dobbs, or, well, it was Roe v. Wade, the principle of stare decisis was supposed to remain solid and intact. Not when fascist Christians get involved. When fascist Christians get involved, and this should be abundantly clear by now, truth seekers, they don't give a rat's ass about what tradition is, about what the law is, about what is just, proper, fair, equitable. They don't care. Look at the history of the Christian religion. Look at it. Can you? I don't mean the stuff you hear in Sunday school at your local Methodist church. That's where I went. I heard all that. And you know what? The local Methodist church where I went never told me about the Inquisition. They never told me about blaming women for the bubonic plague and then burning the women alive at the stake. They never told me about the attacks on Jews and Muslims, slaughtering them, while the Christians were trying to make their way to the Holy Land to recapture it for the Pope or somebody. Look at the history of this religion. It is vile, violent, bloody, hateful, murderous, destructive. Now, Jennifer Rubin can't say that, of course. Aside from the fact that she's a Jew, I'm sure the editorial board of the Washington Post would not allow her to state categorically the truth. But I don't work for the Washington Post, do I? I don't work for anybody because of my mouth, I guess. Anyways, Jennifer points out, as bad as this particular opinion was on Friday, the broader picture is, of course, about much more than abortion. The fascist court right now wants to take 21st century America into, at the very, they'd like to take it back to the beginning, 1791, or at the very latest, late 19th century. And in doing that, they would conveniently skip over the parts of history that disfavors its ridiculous view of individual rights. Women, minorities, gay folk, and others once had little political, economic, or social power. And so they will again, if the court gets its way, have little or no political power. And Jennifer wants us to look carefully at the court's language in this destroying a woman's right to privacy. The way they hopscotch through history. Quote, the opinion says this, quote, until the latter part of the 20th century, such a right to abortion was entirely unknown in American law. End quote. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean that the past 50 years, when Roe v. Wade followed a line of previous cases concerning privacy, that doesn't count? Well, it doesn't to these fascist Christians. Hell no. The last thing Christians want is privacy. You're not to have privacy. You're supposed to stand and testify. You're supposed to raise your arms up to the ceiling in the fucking church and whoop and moan and piss and groan about, oh, Jesus is in the church. Jesus is here. Hallelujah. You're not supposed, even though Jesus himself, not the one they worship, but the rabbi from Nazareth, told the priests and the Philistines and the bad people and I don't know who the hell they were. But Jesus said, you want to speak with my Father? Go into your closet and talk privately. Jesus himself said that public prayer was an abomination. Oh, never mind. Come on, Malloy. Why are you quoting Jesus of Nazareth? Forget that. So the court also leaps past in their ruling, the part of American history when abortion was generally legal, up to what was called quickening. Quickening. But the majority of the court gave it away when they said, quote, we begin with the common law under which abortion was a crime at least after quickening. In other words, the first movement of the fetus in the womb, which usually occurs between the 16th and 18th week of pregnancy, end quote. Oh, my God. So they show with their own fucked up language that abortion was a crime after almost 5 months. And now they're talking about 5 weeks. And eventually they're talking about 0. So Reuben asks a question, why bother with all this selective, fatuous historical argument? Well, this is where it gets scary and goes well beyond abortion. See, this Nazi court, this Christian Nazi court insists that our rights under the 14th Amendment were fixed in 1868, made permanent. We therefore get a perverse result, as the dissent explains. The dissent being the 3 liberal justices, this is what they said, quote, because laws in 1868 deprived women of any control over their bodies, the majority of the court approves states doing so today. Because those laws prevented women from charting the course of their own lives, the majority on the court says states can do the same today. Because in 1868, the government could tell a pregnant woman, even in the first days of her pregnancy, that she could do nothing but bear a child, it can once more impose that command. End quote from the 3 dissenting justices. And yes, women were denied lots of rights in 1868. Don't forget when women got the right to vote, for Christ's sake, 1920? And only in the 20th century did some states affirm their right to hold property or be granted credit or hold certain professions. Listen, personal experience. I was married a long time ago. The first woman I was married to. And it was shortly after we were married, this thing came out called MasterCard. What? MasterCard. Was it called MasterCard at the time? No, I don't think it was. What was it called? But anyway, the bank where we had a checking account, we were living in Tampa at the time. The bank sent my wife at the time a letter offering her a credit card. Master Charge, that's what it was called, Master Charge. And all my wife had to do to get her Master Charge card was to bring me with her to the bank where she would sign and I would sign guaranteeing her so she could get a master charge. And you know what year that was? That was in 1967. So this idea that a woman could take out credit on her own is relatively new, boys and girls, or hold certain professions. Gay people and children of so-called minorities had no rights to speak of, nor did the physically or mentally challenged. None. It took the Americans with Disabilities Act to give people who are physically challenged a fucking voice. So this current Nazi court declares we are stuck with the precise state of the law pre-civil rights, pre-women's rights, pre-modern times. And there is the absurdity and danger of a Supreme Court that is now unmoored from precedent. They don't give a fuck, and unconcerned with the impact of their decisions on today's America. And it won't be long, in my opinion, before fuckers like this group of 6 on the Supreme Court, listen to Uncle Clarence if you want to preview what they have in mind, or his bitch wife, Ginny, if you want to know the direction. It won't be long until these fuckers take us back to what? The 6th or 7th century? Where the church makes determinations. You're sick? Well, that's because you have a demon in you. We're going to use fire and leeches to get the demon out of you, and we're going to pray and raise crosses over your body, and that'll make you well. And if it doesn't, well, fuck you. We'll just let the fire keep burning. So Jennifer Rubin wants to say that her prediction might have been off by 100 years when she predicted back in April that this was going to happen. She says, quote, it's not the 1960s to which the right-wing court wants to take us, but the 1860s. That radical extreme view virtually guarantees outcomes in conflict with diverse modern America. The notion that liberty and equality are ever expanding is kaput. The moral universe is bending backwards. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.